Hi guys, Redneck Reloader here. Thanks for joining me today. This morning while I was having my coffee, I was reading Facebook, scrolling through there, and I'm a member of a couple of reloading groups on there and forums. Somebody had a question on there, said they were new to reloading and they didn't really understand why people powder coated bullets, and was asking, is there a reason for it or is it just for appearance sake? And I answered the question, but then I got thinking, if they've got that question, other people might have that question. And my channel was started to try to help people kind of new to reloading understand stuff. So I was down doing some reloading this morning and I got a bunch of different bullets out here. And so I thought I would just make a short video, trying to make it short. I'll try not to get off in the weeds, talking about some of the different types of bullets, why they're used, some of the abbreviations, because I know you get into the books and there's some of these abbreviations and not everybody knows what they mean and stuff. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna bring you in here close, show you some of these bullets, talk about some of the abbreviations used, some of the reasons the bullets are designed the way they are. So stay tuned. Okay, I'm gonna start out with pistol bullet. Obviously, a lot of bullets are made out of lead, and most bullets are made out of lead. And if you just have a solid lead bullet, when you shoot it down your gun, the friction along the side of the barrel will cause the lead to melt a little bit and smear on the inside of your barrel. Eventually, it'll fill up the grooves in your barrel and take all your rifling away, and you lose all your accuracy. And then you have to go through and de-lead your barrel, which is kind of a pain to have to go through. So when lead bullets are made, they are generally lubricated. So when you cast a bullet, and this is a high-tech coated bullet, but I'm going to use it to illustrate my point. So when the bullet is cast, you can see that groove around there. When you have just a solid lead bullet or a lead alloy bullet, when it's cast, it'll have that groove, and that's a lube groove. And when you get the actual bullets themselves, they'll look like this. That you see that groove is full of lubricant. It's a wax-based lubricant. I don't know everything that goes into it. I'm not a chemist, but I know it's based on wax. And sometimes they're reds. I've seen them that are blue. But when you cast your bullet, you have to put some sort of lubrication in there. That's one way that's commonly done. This is a bullet I cast a few years ago, and if you look closely at this, you can see on the tip, it's that brown kind of discoloration, and it looks shiny. There's actually a coating on there, and that's called Lee Liquid A-Locks. It's a product made by Lee. You take your bullets after you cast them, and you put them in a container like a coffee can or a plastic bag, and you squirt this Liquid A-Locks in there, and it sort of reminds me of honey. And you just toss the bullets around, you get it all coated, and then you just set the bullets out, and that coating dries on there, and that acts as a lubricant. And it's a little bit easier than having to individually lubricate each and every single bullet, and that's why I used it. That's pretty common for people casting at home. I've never seen a cartridge manufacturer sell bullets like that. They're almost always have a lube groove filled with lube. So if you don't want to fool with any of that, you can either powder coat your bullet or high-tech coat it. Very, very similar process. The powder coating is basically you take the lead bullets. I've done it at home. Put it in a plastic bag. You put the powder coating paint in there. Shake it all up good. The static electricity causes the powder to stick to the bullet. Then you take the bullet, put it in an oven, and you bake it. And that powder basically melts, coats the bullet. Then when it cools, it hardens, and it's like a really heavy-duty paint. And high-tech coating is basically the same thing. The way I understand it, I think it was a company in Australia that invented it. But they're taking like the powder coat and they're mixing with acetone, and they make it into a liquid. And they coat the bullets with that and then bake it. It gives you an advantage of a more even coating and better coverage. And if you coat it with that, then you don't have to lubricate the bullet because the coating keeps the lead off of the inside of your barrel. And the powder coat or the high-tech coating comes in different colors. Some companies will do like a red. I know Acme does like a bright red, and Bayou Bullets does a red. And you can get different colors from different companies, but it's all the same thing. That high-tech coating is just to keep the bullets from leading up your barrel, and that's the purpose of it. So that's why you lubricate or high-tech coat. I want to talk about bullet shapes a little bit. So I've got some out here. Why do people use lead bullets, high-tech coated bullets instead of like a full metal jacket? It's usually a cost thing. If you shoot a lot, competitions and things like that, you can get the high-tech coated bullets cheaper than you can a full metal jacket bullet. And that's why. And so what is a full metal jacket bullet? Well, this is a full metal jacket, pistol round. If you look on the inside of it, there's a lead core, and it has a heavy copper jacket around that lead core. That's what your 99% of the bullets, cartridges, if you just go buy a box of cartridges, they're going to be full metal jacket bullet. That's a very common way for them to make bullets nowadays. You've got the lead bullet, but then with the hard copper jacket, you don't have any problems with leading or anything in your barrel. It's very consistent sizing and stuff. That's the way most are made. And they usually call it a full metal jacket. You notice this is open on the bottom. It doesn't matter as long as it's encasing the whole bullet. A lot of times you'll see the bottom of it, the base open, but it's still considered a full metal jacket. And some companies have their own names for that, and some of them are just escaping me at the minute, but they're all full metal jacket or FMJ. Some of them will call them metal case, but it's all the same thing. It's a full metal jacket bullet. You can also get a plated bullet, and that's what this one is. It looks the same. This one just is not open on the base. This is actually a lead bullet that has a copper plating applied to it. The difference being it's thinner than the copper jacket. So the copper plating is not as thick as the copper jacket is. For most people, most applications, doesn't make a difference. In some extreme circumstances, the thinner coating will cause a problem, like really high speed applications, like really high velocity rifle rounds and things like that. But for your average plinker, your average shooter, everyday guy, it doesn't make a difference. They're just a little different. Some of the load data is a little different on them. A lot of books don't have load data for plated bullets. And I've always heard for plated, you should just use regular lead load data because they're a softer bullet than the jacketed, because the jacket is so much thicker, it stiffens it up. You can also get what they call a monolithic bullet. And a monolithic bullet just means the whole bullet is made out of one material or one metal. So in like this one, when you see it's a lead core and then the copper jacket, a monolithic bullet would just be solid copper. And I have some of those in my concealed carry pistol. Just a different type of bullet. So if you see monolithic, that just means the whole thing is made out of one metal. So, moving on a little bit, when you look at some of the older, I'm going to talk about bullet shapes a little bit now. This is a box. It's empty now because I shot them all up. These were wad cutter bullets. And wad cutters, if you look at the box, these are empty cases. You can see there's no room in there to put a bullet. So the case pretty much takes up the whole box. Well, the reason why is a wad cutter bullet is just flat on the nose and it's just round. It looks like a 55-gallon drum. So if I were to take this bullet and load it in here and push this all the way down where it was flush with the top of the case, so it would just kind of be looking like that, that would be a wad cutter. The reason for wad cutters, or what they were developed for, is when you're shooting paper targets, then that wad cutter, that round, hard edge, hard shoulder, punches a real nice round hole in the paper. So people who shoot competitively, shooting at paper and they're scoring their targets and stuff, they liked wad cutters for that. Wad cutters are nice for revolvers, but they don't feed well in semi-automatic pistols because that flat nose, it just doesn't like to feed. So they have another type of bullet they came out with called a semi-wad cutter. And that's what this bullet is. So if you, let me get in here where you can see closely. If you're looking at the bullet from head on, you can see this hard shoulder around here. That's what cuts that nice round hole in the paper. But you have this truncated cone up on top of it. And this serves to help it feed in semi-automatic pistols. So this is a cast bullet, high-tech coated. It has a lube groove here, which you don't need with a high-tech coated bullet, and some people do cast them without that. But if you have an old mold that's already set up for lead, they usually just use it. This little groove above it is a crimp groove. So if you're putting this, when you load this, you would roll crimp your case up into this. So this portion is what sits above the brass in the cartridge. So you've got this hard shoulder out, and then you've got this truncated cone, which would help it feed in semi-automatics. So this is what a semi-wad cutter bullet looks like. And that's just made for shooting paper targets and getting a nice clean hole, but it's better for shooting out of a semi-automatic. So your basic pistol bullet you see a lot is a round nose bullet, or they call it ball ammo sometimes. That's what this is. This is for 45, and you often hear like 45 ball ammo or hard ball. You know, if it's a jacketed bullet, they call it a hard ball, because you can get a bullet just like this in lead. And when you have it packed down into the case and you're just looking at the point, it does look like a ball out there. That's just your regular old round nose bullet. Very common. You see this a lot in militaries use this. Then you can have what's called a truncated cone. That's what some of these bullets are. So they truncated just means cut short. So if you think of a cone like a traffic cone, so this is a high-tech coated bullet. You can see there's no lube groove on this. This was cast specifically to be high-tech coated. And you see it kind of looks like a traffic cone with the top cut off. That's truncated. So this is a truncated cone bullet. And so is this. And so is this. So the shapes are a little bit different. You can see some of them have a sharper peak to them and stuff, but that flat nose is a truncated cone. Then you can get a bullet like this, and this is a jacketed soft point truncated cone. So you can see it's a copper jacketed bullet, but the nose is exposed lead, and it's a truncated cone. This is a bullet that would be made for expansion, kind of similar to a hollow point bullet. When it hits something, the nose is going to, where that exposed lead is out there and it's soft, it's going to expand and kind of mushroom out and kind of act like a hollow point bullet. And that's what that bullet is designed for. So if you see a soft point bullet, that's what a soft point is. It's just made to expand on the end of it. This bullet, this is from Matt's bullets, and this is where you get into the terminology being different. So this is a lead bullet. You can see the lube groove, and you can see this is for 38 special. It's made to be roll crimp, so there's a crimp groove in it. It's a truncated cone, but it's also a hollow point. So Matt's bullets calls this an RFHP. The HP is hollow point, and the RN stands for round flat nosed, which is truncated cone. But their terminology for a truncated cone is round flat nose, or RF. So if you see RF, that's what that means, is truncated cone. You'll see TC for truncated cone, and RF is the exact same thing. It's just round flat nose. This just happens to be a round flat nose hollow point. Now, I think that pretty well covers pistol bullets. So let's get into rifles a little bit. With rifle rounds, you get a few, you can still get the same basic stuff. It's a full metal jacket. So this is a 223. It's a full metal jacket, but you can see the open base and see the lead core in it, hopefully. That's a full metal jacket. Usually rifle rounds are going to be full metal jacket rounds because they travel at higher speeds than pistol bullets. Now, there are rifles, especially some older rifles, there are people who have rifle rounds that are made out of lead. And I have seen people even make like a lead cast 223 rounds. Generally, when they do that with like a 223, they're firing them at a much lower velocity. They use pistol powders, and they usually won't cycle the gun. It's single shot stuff just for kind of cheap target practice rounds. There are some old rifles like the old 4570s and stuff that use lead bullets. They're very bad for letting up the barrel because they're traveling at a much higher velocity, and so that friction is even worse. So what they will do with those, and I don't have an example over here because I don't load any, but The bullet will be a lead bullet. Just for example, use this pistol round. Be a lead bullet, but then on the base of it, they have a copper cap that will cover it, go over it like that. And it's called a gas check. And that kind of goes over the base and wraps around it a little bit like a little cup. And that serves to seal up tightly against the barrel and propel the bullet down. And it keeps the lead from hitting the barrel because that gas check is riding on the barrel, and that keeps it from letting up. So there are certain old rifle rounds that use gas checks. I don't load those. I don't have any of those types of guns, but that is a thing. But most rifle rounds you see are going to be full metal jacket rounds, and you're going to see a few variations in them. You'll see what's often called a spire point or a Spitzer round. Same thing. It just means it's a pointy bullet. So if you think of a spire, a church spire, if you think of an old church, up on the top, it usually has a part of the roof that'll go up and then comes to a sharp point. That's called a church spire. And that's where the spire point comes from. Spitzer is from the German word for the same thing, because the Germans invented them. Old rifle bullets, a lot of them were round nose bullets. And the reason why is because when you loaded them, if you think of an old cowboy movie and you got the thing and they have a loading gate, right? So you got like a lever action rifle. It's got a loading gate, and you'll see them loading rounds in one at a time, pushing them through that loading gate. Underneath that barrel, they have a tubular magazine, and those bullets go into that tube and they stack up on top of each other like this, and they rest in that tubular magazine. Well, when you have bullets sitting in there like that, that tip is pushing directly on the primer of the cartridge in front of it. So if there was a hard enough jolt, it would be possible to set a round off or set off a cartridge, inside of the magazine. So they would use round nose bullets to eliminate that, to make things safer. But pointy bullets travel better. They travel faster, and they have better aerodynamics. So when black powder went out of fashion, and they went with smokeless powders and more powerful guns, and they started using box style magazines and stuff, pretty much most of the rifles went to a spire point or a Spitzer point, and it's just a pointed bullet. And you also see another term called boat tail. This bullet is a spire point, which I'll get to this in a minute, but you can see the bottom is just flat, and that's just a flat bottomed bullet. But you notice this one is also pointy on the end, but it's also kind of pointy on this end. It tapers in. That's called a boat tail, and that's a design. Old speedboats and stuff used to be made that way, that the back end of the boat would curve in like that, and it's made to travel through water or travel through air with less air resistance or less water resistance. It's just more aerodynamic. So that is a boat tail bullet. So this particular bullet would be a spire point boat tail, or it could be a Spitzer boat tail. But if you just see that boat tail term, that just means that the base is tapered versus being just a flat base like this bullet. Right. These are some of these are hollow points. So this particular bullet is a Berry's 62 grain, and it is a 62 grain full metal jacket boat tail. So you can see it's a full metal jacket bullet. It's all solid. The base is open, but it's full metal jacket. And they do call it a boat tail because there is a little bit of a boat tail taper to the back of it. I've got a couple other examples here of rifle bullets. This is a Sierra Match King. That's just their brand. This is a 69 grain HP BT. This is a hollow point boat tail. So if you look at the tip, it's certainly not as obvious as it is in a pistol bullet, but if you can look at the end of the bullet, let me get around here where I can focus better. You can see there is a hole on the end of it. This is a hollow point bullet, and it is a boat tail. So this would technically be a It could be a Spitzer or a Spire point, boat tail, hollow point. So kind of a mouthful, but that's what it is. Then I got a couple more to show you here. These are both flat nose bullets. These are actually both Hornadays. One's a VMAX and the other one's a GMX. But once again, hollow points. They're both hollow points. But this one, you see, it has that red tip. Different manufacturers call it different things. It's usually called a ballistic tip. So what the purpose of that is, it's a hollow point bullet with that little plastic tip in the end. And it's supposed to serve a couple of purposes. One, the main one, is to keep it from clogging up. So if you shoot this through, let's say, denim, they often say that if you shoot a hollow point through denim, as it's going through the denim, some of the denim will break off and fill up the hollow point and keep it from expanding the way it's supposed to. So these ballistic tips are supposed to prevent that. They're supposed to puncture through clothing, material, and stuff, and then push back in and allow the bullet to fully expand. You can see a little bit better. This is a 450 Bushmaster. This also has a Hornady ballistic tip on it. So you can see very obviously it's a hollow point bullet. The end is open, but it's got that ballistic tip inside there. And is there a big difference between the ballistic tips or the non-ballistic tip hollow points? I don't know. You be the judge of that, but I'm just letting you know what they are. So when you see that term, ballistic tip, or let's see, this is the VMAX, a Hornady VMAX. I'm trying to remember what they call those. I don't think they call it a ballistic tip. I think they call it something else, but I just can't remember what they call it. But it is a ballistic tip. And then these GMX bullets, actually, I didn't point this out. As I said, that's a monolithic copper alloy. Won't separate. So that is a monolithic bullet, meaning this whole bullet is copper. It is not a full metal jacket bullet. It is a fully copper bullet with no lead in it whatsoever. So that's a monolithic bullet. All right, I think that's enough bullet talk for one day. I'm sure I bored you to death. But hopefully, if you did have any questions about different types of bullets or abbreviations stuff, maybe this helped you a little bit. I hope so. Hope you all have a blessed day. And I really appreciate every one of you. And this is Redneck Reloader. I'm out of here.